What am I doing? Why am I doing this? Is it pure vanity? I just can't tell if people want these streams. I feel like it would be something interesting to watch. If I wasn't me, I'd watch this stream. But I just don't get that vibe from people. What are they thinking? Sitting there in their live chat room, talking about me in the third person. Who knows? I just want people to have a good time. I want to give them more content, but I don't know how else to do it. We gotta do it live. So here I am, ill-prepared, nervous as a wet dog at a dry cat convention, getting ready to talk up a storm when I barely even talk in my daily life. But hey, if I do it right, maybe they'll like me just a little bit more. I guess it's fun to talk about your own work during that brief period when you've made it and you have not yet begun to hate it. About a day or two for me after posting a video. Hey everybody in the chat. We're just a minute away from something. I don't know what it will be, but it will be something. I'm really happy to have all of you here with me. And so is the captain. That's right, this is Alan speaking. You thought I was the captain, didn't you? We played this game before. No. The captain only shows up for special occasions. ASMR? I should get into that, yes. Yes, Katrin, not Catherine? H's are not cool enough for you, Katrin? Yes, ASMR videos are they over? I don't know. I haven't been following pop culture close enough to be able to tell. I'm just biding my time, doing my thing, hoping that it, too, will not go out of style. Anyway, seeing as how the clock is at 0 hour, perhaps it's time to make the reverb go away and start the show. This is my third stream and I'm the least prepared for it. So let's see what we can turn this into. Here we go! Hi, it's me, your best friend. Well, whenever you're on this channel. Your best friend Alan, here. Happy to be with you. Still recovering from a mild cold, so I very thoughtfully prepared a cough button. Let's test it out right now. Oh, that was good. I hope you didn't hear that. It was quite a cough. I'll try to be cognizant of using it as I speak with you today. Hi, everybody. Hi, Kelly R. Young. I recognize your name from Patreon, I think, or other places. What's the delay like? If you're hearing this, immediately type pandas right now to see what the delay is. I think it might be about 30 seconds. The last time I checked, it was about that. With my connection, or whatever else. I don't know what affects the delay, probably the connection. Hi everybody, I'm just looking at the chat, but I don't want to waste too much time. I don't like things being boring. I'm here to do another stream, and I wanted to change things up this time. You've been watching me work on the next video in previous times, but I thought it might be more interesting to not look forward, but look back. Because I just released a video, like what, 2 days ago, and it's already at over 500,000 views, by the way. Thank you for contributing to that in some way, I'm sure. Spreading the word and stuff. It's doing really well. And it was, I mean, every video is hard to make. You always hear me complaining about it, but this video felt particularly tough for various reasons. Like, I mean, I had this remote guest situation, and then I made some mistakes in the debunking process that I had to kind of go back and correct just in time. So it was arduous, and then I did a lot of, I don't know, maybe it was a little bit too much for what a quick D video is meant to be usually. So I don't know, I thought it's both for you and for me. I'm gonna treat it like sort of a review, a self-review of my job performance, or my, you know, the product I've put out. And it's going to be part that, it's going to be part director commentary, I suppose, and part like a behind-the-scenes look where maybe we'll go shot by shot, and wherever there's something interesting in terms of effects or something, I'll try to like give you some behind-the-scenes like material. We'll open up some of the project, look at the effects and whatnot, and hopefully that'll be interesting. So I didn't have a solid plan beyond that, but I guess I'll just get straight into it. I'm trying to keep an eye. Oh yeah, and so I was gonna say, I'll do this, I'll give you this little tour, and hopefully I won't trail off and talk for too long. You can tell me in the chat if it's getting a little boring, but then after I've done, you know, we've done the whole video all the way through, maybe we'll do a little Q&A, or it doesn't have to be questions that you have to ask me. Maybe if you have some suggestions or concerns or recommendations for me, because you are not just anybody, right? You guys are the patrons. You guys are like my bosses, and I want to be on the same page with you. I wouldn't say like, I want you to be in charge of what's happening. I'd like to give you what I want to give you in terms of content, but I do want to hear what you think and where your head is at. And yeah, so this is that kind of little, you know, company meeting. But anyway, I'm so happy to be done with the video. This is that magical time, like I said in the sort of prelude, where I struggle through the video. By the time I finish working on the video, I'm hating it. I want to cry when I go sit down to work at it, because like it feels like all my life I've been working on this one video, and then one day it's just done, and I'm so happy. Like I'm not usually disappointed with what I just put out. I'm kind of proud of it, and it's nice to see that other people like it too. It's getting the views, but inevitably after maybe a couple of weeks, a few days to a couple of weeks, I just kind of never want to see that video again. If I play it accidentally, I'm like, oh, you know what? I don't like how I'm saying that. That effect looks real cheesy, and I kind of don't want. And I've already grown into a different person, and I don't want to see that video anymore. But we're not there yet. This is that's why it's important to do this process now, so I can be fair to myself. So like I said in the last stream, I was going to do a video about the Gyro Drop, and that's what I was working on. And it all started with the fact that everybody that was reporting on this Gyro Drop viral video quickly, you know, found out and published the fact that this is a real ride. I mean, it's based on a real ride that's in a amusement park in South Korea. And I was like, well, I have a college friend that moved to South Korea, and he became like a high school teacher of English there. And he works at different schools, like he moves from school to school, like periodically. It's some kind of a program. And he's a film buff. I mean, I know him from college, from film school. And he always has like tries to do a video club at whatever school he's at. So he's got some students that like filmmaking and are interested in that kind of stuff, and they're learning English. So it seemed like a fun idea. What if he could get some of his students to participate in this like little sketch with the Captain D? So I asked them this, I sent that idea to him, and he happens to be not too far from Seoul, the city and the region where that park is at, which is called Lotte World. I don't know how to say Lotte World. It's a giant indoor park, and it has a little exterior like island part to it, and that's where this ride is. So anyway, it all worked out. He was able to take a group of students, a camera guy and 3 of the characters, it was just my idea to have like a trio of like a sort of a Huey, Dewey, and Louie, or maybe like the Three Stooges kind of thing, where these kids, I would like just find people in the street and they're big fans of Captain D, and they would immediately want to help me, but they would be so hyper about it that I couldn't get a word in, and it would keep going on the wrong ride, and like I couldn't just get them to do what I want. So I wrote it into the script, and I sent him the script and like little storyboards. I'll show you them a little bit later. And they went and I kind of outsourced this. They went and shot these things, and it didn't work out exactly, which is to be expected. It's just a run and gun thing. They filmed like a home video at the park. It was a little bit different than what I wanted because of like different things they couldn't help. So it was an interesting exercise to retrofit everything and make it seem like a cohesive little thing with the little sketches, recurring sketches there. So I saw somebody ask about my wrist. It's fine. If you do as much computer work as I do, I've been having like this RSI thing, and I just decided to do something about it. Like one of those mouse pads with the wrist support wasn't really helping, so I had to take it a step further. But it's fine. I'm actually doing better because of this, and I think like, I need to like exercise my hands and things more, and maybe I'll be able to get rid of this, but I just do it as a sort of precaution, or just, I don't know, it helps a little bit. All right, so without talking too much, how about we look at things? So I wrote the script, and the first step is of course to film the material. So while these guys were filming the Korean portion of it, or rather they filmed it and they sent it to me really quick because they had to do it in one day. I essentially sponsored a little trip for them to go to this amusement park and just hang out, but as long as they captured this bit of footage for me. And they did. So then, once I had that footage, I filmed my part, and based on what they gave me, I was like, what could we do? So I rewrote my part a little bit, and when I filmed, I made sure that it fits. But it was time for me to film my stuff, and even though it's just a talking head for a quick D, I don't like to do it like whenever. It's not like I could put on the makeup whenever. I'd like to just put it on and just get it done and do it all in one day. Plus, I don't film at my place. I film in my family's home. I go over there and I film it so that I have the space or whatever. I don't really have the space here to do that stuff. So I like to organize everything and just shoot on one day. So I, this time, captured a time lapse of this process. I've done that before, but I thought it might be interesting to see. Let's see, let me switch to where we can see what's going on. There we go. So let's play through this time lapse. I basically started the day before. Oh no, okay, here we go. The day before I started like setting up the room because I need to set up the green screen and everything with all the lights. And I have this cloth green screen that I need to iron out and stuff. And this time it was actually 2 green screens. I'm gonna pause it here. God, this guy needs to lose some weight. Because of that drone thing, I don't know if you've seen the video where the drone looks at me, I actually filmed that simultaneously. So I put another green screen here and I put a camera right there. Are we seeing what I'm showing? Okay. That's how I did that. But I had to put a light up here. And it's funny, as it's rigged up and you watch it, it's like the time lapse of it falling down. It was like clamped to this pipe where it kept falling over no matter how tightly I clamped it. So I kept doing it and it kept going down. And then I had to just rig it up once and for all. So then the next day, here I am preparing. I did the engineer guy section first, and there's my dad joining me with the teleprompter. I set up this prop. I wanted to make sure that I get it all right. I'm not that good at impressions, and it was involving a lot of like action and business to do, and I wanted to make sure that demonstration worked while trying to be the guy. But yeah, we started with that part. Then when that was done, I reset everything for the hosting portion, and I just like talked through all of it. We did all the things bit by bit, and then we were done. But it was all done in one intensive. And then this is me like after at the end just reading the portions that I knew for sure were going to be voiceover. So this is just me reading them off the phone, off my script, into the same mic. I wanted to make sure they sound, you know, consistent, and it's just faster that way than going and doing it at home. I like to do it so that it's quick, but little did I know that that was not going to be the end of the voiceover. So yeah, so that's the filming process. It happened very quickly, and then it was time to edit the thing. And a whole month later, we ended up with the final video. So now, I figure we could just go do like a sort of literal real-time commentary on this. So let's just start playing it, and I'll see what I can comment on.
Finally, it's all been leading up to this. The perfect video for me to demystify.
Nothing crazy so far.
And realistically,
I kind of find it difficult to, not difficult, but it's like, it's getting harder and harder to come up with just the opening line of a quick D, because it's like, I gotta get straight to the video, because this is, it needs to be short, and the subject video is usually short, and I just want to get it out, so it's like, what weird thing can I say to quickly segue into the demonstration?
no one on the web seems to have any idea that it's actually completely fixed.
Alright, so this first little joke, here we've arrived at the first joke of the episode. Usually, I start out with the intention to do something simple with any scene, and then I end up making it more complicated. But this is a rare instance where I actually envisioned something more complex, that it would suddenly start being bombarded by these articles, like they would be hitting me in the face in slow motion and things like that. So actually, I wasn't sure how that would work, but just in case, I actually filmed a little bit of, where is it? Yeah, I filmed this, like, stuff where, like, there's psychedelic things happening, and maybe I'm, like, getting smashed in the face, like Raging Bull style. And then I kept putting the editing of that, the visual effects parts of that, off, because there were so much more complicated parts to do. So and then eventually I realized it's not going to work, because how am I going to have like a picture of an article hit me in the face and you'll still be able to read what it is? It just didn't really make sense. So even though I took time to film that and key that out and everything, it ended up being just not something that works. How do we switch back? Okay. So in the end, it was just these articles, and it's a simple setup. Let's actually look at the After Effects project. It's like one giant master project where all the effects and all the things are put together that were done inside After Effects. Wait, what are we opening here? This is that little segment. All it is each article is a flat plane, right? I have a slightly lower resolution there because this project is very big and it's very slow to let it look at it. So yeah, it's basically like a flat picture in 3D, and there's the camera, and the camera is moving toward it, and the pivot point of the whichever article is always on the word fake, and there's a light also that makes it have that little vignette appearance. This is the light, and the camera has depth of field on so that it's all like nice and blurry, so when you're looking through it, it's just focusing in on the word fake mostly, and then there's a little expression down here that just tells it to wiggle that way, and so every single shot is just a series of those things, just screen caps moving, you know. Anyway, let's move forward.
Okay, fine. But you know what? Those articles are very superficial.
And here, as I'm editing, I'm freaking out about the fact that this shot is so long. There's nothing happening. I'm just saying so many words. There's no visual gag. It was terrible. So I needed to at least put this little pulling back thing. But I'm really unhappy with this cut because I try to have not, even in Quick D, I try to not have unmotivated cuts where it's just like a jump cut. And here we've been pulling back, right? As if something's going to be revealed ultimately. But in the end, I press my communicator, and all of a sudden it cuts to a close-up again, only to pull right back to reveal the drone. It kind of didn't make sense, but I wish I would have thought of that transition ahead of time when I filmed it, and it would have been like more, I don't know, it wouldn't feel so vloggy, I guess. Another thing I just noticed when I was preparing to talk about it, you see how my face has a different, it's like I suddenly look like a zombie, there's like a different color. It's not because of any like automatic settings of white balance or anything. I actually made a mistake, and in the project, I don't know if we can see it, if we can find it easily, but there's like some kind of color thing I made for when the drone comes out. I wanted it to have this interactive lighting on me, and I accidentally left a layer basically on by accident. Wait, where is that? Maybe this is not so interesting, I don't know. But let me just pop in there. There's the video, the shot. There's some weird, what is that? This thing. See? No, not this thing, this thing. This is what the color is supposed to be. And this is what I accidentally left this little layer on, and it's like, it sucks to discover that once the video is already like getting its views and everything. I feel like maybe if I discovered that the day I published it on Patreon, I would have been like re-uploading again, but I guess it's not so bad. I thought when I first saw it, I thought it was because of that second green screen, because on this shot where the drone comes out, I turned the light on for that green screen, so I thought maybe there's some kind of weird bounce or something. Anyway, I usually don't make mistakes like that, but things get away from you. Anyway, let's get to the interesting stuff. So, Dronus. I had this idea to do a drone thing, like I feel like years ago. I was gonna go to some convention, and I thought, it sucks to try to bring makeup and be the character, and it's even annoying in like a remote situation to try to film. Like either I have to bring a person or I gotta ask somebody to film me. So I thought, what if Captain D sends a drone somewhere and I just go and film everything first person and people talking to the camera and stuff, and it could just be this drone thing. And I never did it. And then this time, the idea was perfect. Like this idea needed that. And so I went ahead and I modeled this drone. So let's take a look at the drone, shall we? Let's go into Blender and open it up. Dronus appears, shot 2 from scene 3. By the way, I just want to check in with you guys. Is everybody seeing what I'm giving you guys? Yes, everything good? Everybody happy? Right? There's no technical horrible problems, and I'm talking to myself. We're good? Okay. Okay, so, yeah, this is the drone. What is happening? Okay, I modeled it in Blender. If I could just turn it on. It's just a little, I'm not like a super great modeler, as I've humbly pointed out in the past. But yeah, it's just a drone. There's a, what do you call it in Blender? A driver. It's like there's 2 keyframes that are just making that little propeller turn. If we look at the, wait, what are we looking at? The graph editor, is that what it's called? And where is that? Rotation. Am I selecting the right thing? Anyway, somewhere, what is happening? Somewhere there's a thing that just takes these 2 keyframes and makes them go infinitely forward to make this thing spin. The body of it is rigged up in such a way that the pivot point of the base of it is actually on where the camera's nodal point is. So if I rotate this, this thing. If I rotate this around and my pivot point was actually the median point, then it rotates around the camera, so it's easy to animate this way. But there's also what is called a object constraint on this pan head and this tilt head and the whole camera itself, where if I rotate it around, if I rotate the base around, it keeps it pointed at a specific target, and it tries to keep the camera upright automatically. And and if I move it up and down or something, the camera keeps looking in the same point, which is this little box. So the box basically controls where the camera is pointed. And so between controlling the target and controlling the drone body, you know, it kind of gives it that, basically how a gimbal really works. And then these nozzles, the little jet things, are pointed at these little null objects down here, which are all parented to this little ball. So when I move it around, the nozzles follow that and point at it. And the cool thing is, if I wanted to do something like I want them to converge, I can just scale this ball down and they're all pointing down. Or if I want them to go out, you know, like depending on what kind of maneuver the drone is doing. And lastly, each of the nozzles has a little, like, in order to make these little controlling wings flare out, I modeled like a version of it where it's flared out, and you can just use a shape key, which is like a little morph of this object from that state to that state. That doesn't really make sense how these flaps would work. They become wider somehow, but you know, it's so tiny that it doesn't matter. So all of these various controllers, it's like once you set it up, it's not that much, and you just kind of juggle them around to create this animation. I had my image, like my footage of me doing stuff, imported into here, but I deleted it because I was sending this off to be rendered using like a cloud service because it was too long for me to render at home, and I wanted it to look good. So this is basically the animation. Just the drone comes out, it looks at me, and then when it starts to take off, or actually the whole time, you see also there's these like jet, you know, things as it's flying, and these are just lens flares, Video Copilot optical flares, and I was able to put them in there. Why isn't this in full res? To put them in there, I put little null objects at the edges of each, like the tip of each nozzle, and then exported this 3D scene and imported it into After Effects so that I had these little null layers exactly where they're supposed to be, and then I assigned little flares to them. Anyway, that's just one half of this shot. The other half is that there's a picture-in-picture thing going on, and the picture-in-picture monitor, is in itself kind of a bit of a project. Let's go into it and see, or let's look at it when it's bigger. We're jumping ahead of ourselves. So if I just solo this, it's not a Photoshop image or anything. It's just made out of shape layers in After Effects. I did a couple of shape layer tutorials recently if you're signed up for the tutorials level, and it's just that same technique except with a bunch of, if I open this layer up, what letter am I supposed to press? U. This is how much stuff is in this one little layer to make up this, all these buttons and this logo, and everything is just made of shapes. There's an expression there somewhere driving those little blinky lights, and I chose to do it as shape layers because when it appears and disappears multiple times in the video, I wanted like a snazzy way to like animate it, you know, and this was good enough because you could just keyframe all the elements in this so you could do this weird transformation thing. And that's how that works, and it's simply sitting on top of the image that is the communication thing that the drone is seeing, which is itself treated with some effects and stuff to make it look like a transmission. There's actually a couple of layers of it, but inside is just a clean image. So let's take a look at what's actually going down when it starts. There's a whole thing of the drone. So like I said, I filmed myself from the other vantage point and actually messed up, and on a few takes I bumped the camera. I was using this camera I'm talking to you through right now, but it has this funky lens that if you just touch it, it might lose focus, and I had a screen but I wasn't paying attention, so it ended up soft, but it was good enough to be this small little insert. So unfortunately I'm kind of out of focus, and I keyed, this was on green screen too, and I keyed and put the same background but gave it a little different treatment and this lens distortion effect, and then I watched what the drone is doing in my final animation you know, and if it's bobbing up or down, I would animate the background to kind of do the opposite parallax movement, and it's just this layer just being moved up and down and stuff. So, I mean, whichever direction the drone was bobbing. And then, as it flies away, I pull back my image, and it goes into a whole little animated sequence, which first, oh gosh, it's so slow. Yeah, I put little lens flares to be able to kind of simulate the drone's jets. So we're going through space, and this is how slow it gets by the end, and it's like, you want to do something, but this is how long it takes. I'm going to reduce the resolution there for a second. So there's like a layer of these blobs of color, these stars, and the like sort of vapor that keeps going. It's actually an actual 3D camera move in After Effects, if I can somehow see it. Yeah, there's the camera, kind of like flying backwards, right? And then it eventually, how could we do this? Oops. Yeah, eventually it actually goes backwards and pans over, but it pans over not to a 3D thing, but to an image I rendered, to a quick animation I rendered in Blender. I made a little Earth, and I focused it on South Korea, and it was going in there, but the resolution of that map is not that high, so at a certain point it just cuts off. And then I did the old trick that I'm sure you've seen. If you do After Effects stuff, you must have done this kind of tutorial of like an extreme zoom into a continent. So at a certain point, another map takes over, and it's kind of obvious. I kind of didn't remember how to do this right, so I tried to cover it up with the drone jets. But you can kind of tell it suddenly switched to a different picture. And then it switches to yet another closer view, and then an actual like satellite image of the park. And then we come into the actual shot that they shot in Korea. But there's a little 3D thing, and just to do that, I really felt strongly I wanted like that feeling of the drone landing. So I took the footage of the take that I ended up starting their stuff with, and in Blender, or I used this program called Synthesize, which I sometimes use for 3D tracking and this kind of thing where you want to determine where was the camera at a certain, depending on what the shot is. And Blender, this is the scene that I built, like a quick little mock-up of the shot, where if we look through it, rendered, it looks like the shot. Am I looking through the camera? No. Nope, no, that's not what I want. Yeah, this is the shot, and this is how we land into it, because it's all mapped onto like a sort of rough mock-up of that scene. There's the little stand that's next to the camera, the people that are standing next to it, the first boy, and the building in the back, and it's kind of like projection mapped onto it, and it's not perfect, it's very messy, but I thought, let me just do it just enough that it can be part of this quick blurry, motion blurred zoom. And I think it's like just good enough to kind of work. So that takes us finally into the footage of the kids. So let's continue to watch the show. And I had to start out with the drone there. Let me see if I can depart from the shot a little bit. It starts down there. Oh yeah, and then so also these little jets are like just they're just stock footage elements of like little explosions and stuff. And so once the drone's out of the way, I can make this thing bigger. And we join the kids.
You there, boy, and you too as well.
Now, you see the boy, the main boy kind of looks down at where he's, I guess they decided like where they're gonna stand. And I wouldn't have picked this take necessarily, but just to give you an idea of what they would do sometimes. I don't want to make fun of them, but this is just funny. Like, let's see, students. Here's an example of a take that my friend captured. Oops, it's very loud. Let's just go through this. There's a little bit of room.
Hey, you there, boy. You too as well.
So he would do things like that, nervous little ticks. Like he did that eye thing, not just that time, but maybe like 4 out of the 7 takes. And then one time, this take where they did everything, but they messed up the lines halfway through because they were just starting to do it, and they, like even in this one, they don't really finish it. But there were all kinds of things, and then you just have to pick the best that you can. You know, they're not experienced actors. Nobody's there as like a filmmaker and stuff, and you're in a very difficult situation. So I certainly don't like. I'm not saying this like from like why couldn't they do a good job? They did an awesome job from. Given the circumstances, but it's funny, like, it took a lot of figuring out, like, what's the most good compromise take, you know? So, it was like a tapestry of things that sort of worked. And also on my end, I had to be like, I'm just as bad at doing this conversational stuff, so I just, tons of takes of me trying to react to them, tons of takes of them trying to do their part, and then you gotta put this puzzle together. Anyway, so I would just, you'll see there's like a little bit of, I tried to do it in one shot, everything, but obviously I couldn't. So sometimes, for my part, I had the luxury of like cutting to like a close-up, or sometimes I just switch slightly the angle. But their shot is something that I couldn't zoom into one kid because the picture would be too degraded. And they're in this composition that I don't really have a lot of room. So right now I cut to my own close-up because it needed to cut to a different take of them talking. And also, like, he ended up looking kind of off to, I think, the instructor, my friend, and the others remembered that you have to look at the camera, so it's like, you know, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? You can't ask for perfection. Now this part, I knew that there would be transition, and I wanted to make this joke about having a transition, so I thought it would be like a Batman thing. But I asked my friend what could be like a symbol that's relevant in this context to these kids, or the fact that I'm in that region. And he showed me, he said like the town that they're in has this this mascot that's like represents the main crop of that area, which I think is buckwheat or something. And so I used that, I drew a version of it as like a caricature of it. And right in After Effects, also with shape layers, which I don't recommend. I mean, for this kind of thing, it's better to just open Photoshop and do that. But anyway, I used that, and then the background image that's spinning is just one of their shots, just like blurred.
Whoa, why is there a transition? I thought this was live.
And here's where
Great. Wait a minute.
that it differs a little bit from the original idea of what they would do, which was I wanted them to be real hyper and run off before I ever have a chance to finish things, and I wanted them to ride each ride, and I'll show you the storyboards. In fact, let's look at that now. So like this is what I sent them, like these sort of anime style storyboards that would be used like in actual, I don't know, this is like the exact format that like Ghibli would use or whatever. So they meet up. Some of it is exactly what I wanted, but then they would ride the gyro swing. They learn that it's the wrong one. They go to the other one, and it's the gyro spin. And then it was going to coincide with me debunking the thing, explaining how all the effects work, and eventually saying like how sometimes I say in videos like the thing is cool enough. The real ride is cool enough. They didn't have to enhance it like that. You see, and at that point the kids would find the ride, and I'd say like, see, these knuckleheads are enjoying it. So I wanted to have them see it, find it at the end. But unfortunately, due to weather, the day that they went to this park, they were not able to capture the get on the ride. It wasn't operating, but they did film it just in case. And they filmed like a thing of them finding it. But I just and wisely they filmed themselves going on this other ride, which. What is that? That's something else. They filmed themselves going on the wrong ride, and I thought in the end that's kind of a funny ending where I think they got on the ride because it looks like they're strapped into a thing that goes up and down, but it's the wrong ride, and that almost felt more like Captain Disillusion style, where I never quite get my way and I get angry.
It's not the gyro drop, it's the gyro swing. You got the wrong ride.
Also, at these little subtitles, I didn't have that, but at the very end, I thought. Oh yeah, because another thing you heard in the take, that I showed you, the sound quality was really, really bad. Like, it's a very noisy place, and they were just filming with a camcorder. So and my friend was talking over it, so it's not like I could show it like as is. I needed a way to hear them clearly, and then have my lines be delivered. And then so I used like fancy software to just try to like clean up their sound as much as possible, to isolate that noise and actually add in my own ambient park sounds and stuff, so that there's some kind of continuity. And I think like tomorrow or something, I will release a version of this, like I've been doing with some of the videos, where there's a just sound effects and music. So then you'll hear like which parts I actually added in. And I really wanted just to fade them in for the moments that they speak, and then fade them right out. And the rest of it is just artificially recreated audio. But I thought, because of a little bit of accents, and sometimes they don't project, and sometimes the sound just couldn't be saved enough to be clear, I thought, let me put these little fun subtitles so that we can tell. No one is uncomfortable not being able to tell what's being said. And finally we get to the point. Oh, before that, notice there's this little shot has the communicator. I don't have an official name for it. And because we see it so clearly, I had to go in there and I had to create a little bit of a thing so you could see what's on my communicator there. Let's see. I'm just going to open that up and show you what that looks like, in case you wondered. Because it's so tiny, and because there's basically, it's not important what is actually on the screen, this is what it is. I mean, it's flipped upside down so that I could track it, but it's basically like nonsense, and it couldn't be too detailed because I wanted it to read. So this is what's on the communicator. And by the way, let's just take a little breather. I can show you the real prop. I know Samantha, my moderator, like dug up the real thing, the little toy that I bought, but this is the actual prop. This is one of them. I have a version of it where there's a green screen, which is what I was wearing, like when I want to replace something in there. And then there's one in case sometimes we need to see it like in its off state. It's dusty, I never use this one. So there's like a version with a green screen, a version with just a black screen. There used to be a little like LCD screen computer game in there, and I just opened it up and I use a Sharpie to make the screen black. So these are the comms. Let's just place them back. I don't think I could find replacements for these if I like destroy. I actually had a third one, and there was some episode where I destroyed it. I think the one where with the undebunkable episode, like it breaks, and I just took a hammer to one of them. Let's get back to the screen. How are we doing? I'm sorry, I'm gonna check in on you guys because for all I know, you guys are not seeing what's going on. Yeah, it's not a pin, I know there's a pinball one. Maybe that was pinball. I feel like it was something else, that game. I think whoever manufactured those, they just used the same body for different games. It used to be like something you could pick up at Walgreens. Oh, yours is a different color, Samantha? Well, yeah, I paint the silver part obviously of that thing is not silver. I spray painted that, but it was red, and I figured my walls are red, so it's probably fine. Yeah, let's move on. Let's get through this, guys. You see how long and how much effort it's taking to explain it. Imagine doing it. Okay, let's play. So, here we get to my nightmares. This begins the things where I show you the actual reasoning and the numbers and things that I was using. So I did all this. I wrote it. I checked my numbers twice. I filmed. I recorded. I spoke the words. I did all the graphics, and I was happily working on the sound mix. And then I looked at this shot, and I was like, "Hey, wait a minute! I'm using this sort of goofy way of estimating a length through this, like the drawing, the typical like Sid Field, or who's the guy that from the 50s that's like how to draw like stuff, where it's like traditional that like a superhero type man is 8 heads tall, where as an average man is more like 7.5. So I look at this, I'm like, there's 6.5 heads there. oh my god, I just made a clerical error of how many heads I made on the graphic, which meant that I was assuming that the wrong length was 1.8 meters. But further from that, I also realized I'm kind of, the graphic used to be different over here, and I used to estimate it from this point here, from the part that supports the seats, and I wasn't really taking the extreme amount of perspective into account. And long story short, my estimate for the height of the tower was 45 meters, and I was estimating it to this point where the gondola or the carousel actually goes up. So that got me thinking, what else have I got wrong? Because then I checked and I realized lots of articles that covered this story actually found out that the tower, as far as like the promotional materials about this tower, say that it's 70 meters tall. That you drop from 70 meters. And I looked at some Korean language sites that have more details about it, and it does always say that it's a 70 meter drop. 45 and 70 is a big difference. And then I realized, and then I thought, well, is it, or well, I don't remember the sequence of events. I was like, okay, I need to recheck my numbers. And I thought maybe the reason I got it so wrong, because my estimates couldn't be that off, was because of perspective. After all, I'm just using this like a linear sort of digital measuring stick to do it, but we are on the ground and it's a very tall structure. There's got to be some, you see these buildings, they're going like in sort of converging a little bit. There's some perspective, and that must affect what visually, how the length, translates. The longer it gets, the more foreshortened you might be seeing it. So I had to kind of just go back to the drawing board. So what I did is I once again used this Synthesize program to do my very best to try to extrapolate the camera position first before I did anything. And the way that usually works is that if you have a bunch of reliably straight perpendicular lines that both represent vertical, like the z-axis, the x-axis, and the y-axis, then you can trace those and you can triangulate your position. But unfortunately, this is like a shot from hell for that, because as you can see, you don't see the ground, and what you see is like the little bit of ground surface you see is water. That doesn't help us at all. You don't see where any of the structures are actually planted, the footprint on the ground. And nothing is perpendicular. If you look at this park and this area on a satellite map, all the buildings just happen to be like whichever way. Even those apartment buildings in the back, they're kind of like, they're not in any way aligned with the building of the park there or anything. So it was a nightmare. But somehow, using these two buildings and knowing that they are at least parallel to each other, I was able to kind of coax out a position for the camera. So I'm going to go back to Blender now to show you my sort of testing ground for all this stuff once I was redoing it. Let's see, measuring lineup. And it's nothing exciting, but basically, I took this image, and once I had, at this point, the positioning of the camera, all that mattered, the only thing I wanted from Synthesize was to know that my camera is something like, compared to the ground, it is something like this angle, more or less. And then I assumed that, you could see on the satellite image that across the lake there's like an area where there's like a little clearing where they probably put the camera. And if you're going to put a camera on a tripod, I'm assuming it's going to be somewhere in that 1 to 2 meter range. So I made that assumption. And then by checking on the satellite that these buildings in the back are all 30 stories high or something very round, some specific number, I don't recall at this point. I checked what's an average height of a 30-story building, and that's 90 meters. So if the building is 90 meters, maybe I could kind of get and extrapolate the height of the tower and where they are positioned in relation to each other, because I could see where they're positioned in relation to each other on the satellite picture. And then I thought, you know what, this tower, it has this long antenna thing, and so what if maybe the truth is that it's 70 meters tall up to that little thing, because that's what people advertising it would want to do. You'd want to say, oh, it's 70 meters tall. It doesn't matter that thing is just a plastic stick. Technically, it's 70 meters tall. And articles that describe it, like the CNN article about the viral video, kind of they're like slippery about it. They say, you get taken to the top of a 70 meter of the 70-meter tower. But that doesn't mean that your drop is 70 meters, because the thing doesn't go as high as the tower. So, excuse me, oh my gosh. So, I went ahead and assumed that it's 70 meters tall altogether. And I was able to kind of prove that using this, this setup here. First of all, the reason I did it in Blender is to check whether the parallax made a difference. And for example, this one, this stick, I aligned it with the camera to see if, like, I think it's, what is it? It's 45 meters, my original assumption. So if I reset its rotation to just be upright in the world, let's see, let's reset it. What is the reset? Alt R, right? So you see, it doesn't look, it looks less tall. There is a little bit of a difference, so I'm glad I did this. Anyway, I double checked my, yeah, sorry, so I'll finish my thought there. So I wanted to test the assumption if the tower was 70 meters. So I assumed that the building is about 90 meters. I made this box, I traced the building and tried to position it as closely as possible. And then told it to be 90 meters tall in this world, or scaled the world until it's 90 meters. And then I made a stick that was 90 meters. It's not 90 meters now, but if I scale it down to 70 meters, sorry, not 90, 70, you'll see that it aligns exactly to this top of this thing. And then I positioned it like it was somewhere else, right? And I positioned it so that it lines up with this thing. And what that gave me is that this building and this tower should look like they're a certain distance from each other that looks like what the satellite image looks like. And it does. So if you go and look at it, it's kind of there, like the alignment is about like this. So it kind of matched. And I really badly wanted to call, I found the manufacturer of the ride, which is like a company in Switzerland. And I couldn't find reliably the information. Is it 70 meters tall or is the drop 70 meters? I wanted to call them, but I discovered this on Friday night. It was the Saturday morning is when I was freaking out, and I wrote that blog post, Patreon post saying I'm gonna have to redo a bunch of stuff. And I wanted to call them, but they weren't open on the weekend, so I just said, I'm gonna go with 70 meters, the end. So anyway, that's how I got that, and I double checked the size of the gondola, the carousel, and it's 1.78, and I just rounded it up to 1.8 because that's also the height of an average person in Korea. And so after all that freak out, I had to go back and I had to change all these graphics and some of the voiceover. So for example, when I'm saying here like
Estimate the height of the carousel, and from that the height of the tower, about 70 meters.
that about 70 meters is dubbed in after the fact, me sitting here dubbing it in. And that meant that the extended height was also completely different. I thought it was 70 meters when it extended. So I had to dub in saying 106, I had to change these numbers, and by the way, I also had to use the Blender project to double check that the version with the extended version of it, oh, there, like use this same angle where the camera is already in the correct place to double check if maybe the, so yeah, this is how I got 106 essentially. By scaling it up and knowing that I can rely on the perspective distortion being correct. So there, when we get to 106, apparently, I don't remember. I don't know why it doesn't look right now. Oh, because this is a different one. This is one that's not in the correct place. Whichever. I don't know. This is a big messy project. I don't know. I think that one. If I grow it to be exactly where the thing is supposed to be. Point is, it's 106. And that's how I get that number.
Seems like a monumental architectural.
Then I drew this in a program called Clip Studio Paint and animated it in After Effects. That was pretty easy. This is from their promotional footage from their YouTube channel. And I added this little graphic of POV. It kind of sucked to, later in the video I revealed the original post and the high quality video from their channel on YouTube, but until I did that reveal I needed to use the ones from Twitter, and they're lower resolution, so I had to zoom into these crappy looking videos even though I was analyzing the high high resolution version, but you gotta be consistent. And here we're getting into the engineer guy parody. So I took a screenshot of a real YouTube page, used the font to create a fake video here, put these to be all my videos, and this is of course already the first frame of the scene of the gyro drop. I mean the engineer guy scene. Now you see there's a little. This is kind of how their title cards work on the engineer guy channel, and I wanted it to give this little motion, but this was just a still from the scene that's about to follow. But in order to give it this little independent motion, I went ahead and I took a still of this, and I went into Blender, and I did a little mock-up thing of it. I took the photo, and again I used that technique that's very useful, where you just make a rough version of it that's just good enough to look right from the angle that you're looking at it, and I mapped, like a projection mapped, the photo, in this case the still image, onto it. So like it looks ridiculous from any other angle, but from the camera angle it's fine, and it's enough to rotate this thing. And I rigged it up so that the balls, the half balls, always face the camera, so that texture does not need to be, distorting. And if you turn it too much, you start to see all that, like distortion and stuff. But it was just enough. It was just so that I could turn it a little bit for that little subtle effect. And so that took a little while. And then finally there was no visual effects. But filming this was a little bit challenging because, I mean, I'm no impressionist, so I'm trying to talk like the guy. I don't have that deep range that he has in his voice. I'm trying to do his little, like, middle America accent, and the stuff I'm doing, this demonstration, it needed to work, but it's kind of hard to, it's like doing that thing, where you're like doing two motions at once. Some of these shots are filmed at a higher speed, like 60 frames per second, so they had to be color corrected because they were a lot darker. And that wig, we bought, I couldn't find like a normal gray hair wig in party stores, so we bought like a sort of Saruman, like some kind of wizard, like super long hair, and just sheared it like the night before, and we weren't really paying attention. It's kind of hard to cut that weird plastic polyester stuff, so it was all messy, and I got to set and I had to film and I had to hurry, and I saw that it had all this messiness, but I was like, whatever. I hope they don't think I'm trying to say like the engineer guy is like slobby, because he's very clean cut, sort of 1950s kind of man. But I don't know, whatever. Sometimes you just gotta say screw it. And also, I went to Goodwill to find a shirt because I don't own a sort of light blue shirt like this. And the only one I could find that didn't require cufflinks and things was this like super duper obese size. So it looks kind of weird, but I mean, it got the point across because they didn't need to be seen from below the waist, really. So all this is done for real. And yeah, we have, let's take a look at how do we do this? I have that prop here. I just put it on a C-stand, and I bought different round things that I could possibly make into, have easily spin on a thing that's the size of a C-stand. C-stands are these multi-purpose stands that you use in filming stuff, like you could put a light on them or whatever. And the round thing ended up being something out of like a vent for a wall, and it's like you disassemble it and there's this part inside. And I spray painted it yellow so that it kind of reminisces, there's some kind of connection to the carousel in the ride. And I found, and actually let's see, it looked like this, the foil balls, it was hard to make them heavy enough and big enough and to keep them similar looking. So I used these wooden, you're not seeing this, my bad. Yeah, I used these like wooden beads from like Michael's or whatever, and I just taped the yarn to them. I also bought different kinds of yarn, so some of it was like not slippery enough so they could fall down. But I just kind of tested it out. So this is before I spray painted the thing yellow. And the spray paint was the wrong kind, I guess. It wasn't really holding on, because at the end when I'm tossing the thing to fall, you could kind of see it in this one. I don't want to take it off. It's a whole thing. But it was chipping off as I would break it, so I had only a couple of takes to do it. Yeah, sorry. So let's continue. So this thing, this like money shot of this segment was kind of hard to do. It was hard enough to get it to work while I'm trying to do the impression. I feel like very conceited, like it's not a good impression. It's just me vaguely trying to sound like the guy. But I was completely losing it if I was focusing on what to do. So I did a few takes where I just read the lines and then a few takes of just doing the business. So to do this, where I get the balls have to go forward and exceed the speed of the carousel, it was like I started out spinning it and forcing it to move, but by the time the things are retracted, I had to actually be like not letting it go faster than I had to somehow keep my finger going at a constant speed. And I did a bunch of takes of that just to get that little effect to work. And then we're finally just about through the through the sketch. So even something as simple as bumping it and making sure that it falls, like I said, it's on a C-stand, so those things are not really designed to fall. You kind of get a glimpse of it on the time lapse, I think. Like, yeah, see, and it wasn't, I was using a baby stand, so it wasn't tall enough, and I needed to put it on the Apple boxes. So I used that to be able to make it fall down. Once I was doing the take where I have to bump it and it falls, I put one of these feet just on the edge of a box, like the back one, I guess, and so that, like, the moment I kind of touch it, it will slide off of it and fall in the direction that I want it to fall in. So sometimes you got to think of things like that in order to get this stuff to work, because like you can't be there all day. You just need you hit a thing, you want it to fall in a certain direction. What are you gonna do?
None of this makes any sense.
And finally, before I finally move on from this sketch, even everything was against me. Like those balls on those long yarn things, like when it fell, first of all the paint was chipping off, but the balls would tangle so much. It was like it took literally like 15 minutes to untangle them all. So I only managed to do it 2 times, maybe 3 times. It was like me there, like sitting, untangling these impossible knots. Anywho, now we're into another graphic. This idea of unfolding the globe, I had a long time. It's not my idea, but I had this thought a long time ago, because this is how you actually map an image onto a 3D object. You unwrap it, but there's a button in most 3D programs where you could just tell it, this is a sphere, so unfold it this way. But what if I wanted to show it? So a while ago, I thought I was going to do like a tutorial for patrons, actually, where I do that. And the only way I could figure out to do that was manually, basically. So what I did is I made a ball, but I unfolded it in stages manually by moving like literal just points. I made the, like for the nozzles of the drone, I mentioned those shape keys. So that's what I used in this case. There's a shape key to first unfold it. Like, here's the problem. I'm sorry, I'm gonna demonstrate this. If it unfolds all the way from a ball, you could theoretically create a ball and then create a plane version of it, like move all the points into a flat plane, and you could just morph between those. But when you do that, I'm going to demonstrate. I'm going to create a new shape from mix, and then we'll have a ball, and we can use this to just morph directly into the plane. But this is what happens. It just takes the shortest, every point in the ball takes the shortest route to the position it has to be in the flat plane. So you get something like this. So to unfold it, you have to kind of coax it to be that way. So first, you just unfold the poles and straighten them out into a cylinder. And then you make a seam on one of the sides, and you unfold it that way into a U shape. And then you make another morph of that into a flat plane. But how do you do it so that there's only 3 sliders? Well, you have to like create the shape and then overshoot it. I don't know how to, this is like beyond my ability to explain things, but basically if I show you the second stage of the morph, without turning on the first, you get this weird shape, which is like the version of the U shape if you subtract the cylinder part of it. Similarly, this is the shape of the flat plane if it skips the step of being the cylinder and then the U shape. So you have to like, this is what it really is morphing into. But when the other ingredients are there, it becomes a plane. So don't even worry about this. But this is like the kind of crap I have to like sit and figure out sometimes just to make a little visual gag, which is essentially just a little flourish, right? Through the camera view. So yeah, this animation works by this camera, the 3D camera just traveling forward while this thing morphs, and it's repositioned from vertical to horizontal position. And I also made a little Captain D logo so that it could fall and just animated it falling down. And I already finished this part like without that hand being there. I just had the logo just kind of hanging there and then falling. But then I thought to make it look like a magnet sort of force, it might be good for something to be dropping it. So I quickly threw together this little robot hand. It's not really like articulated, but I did it so that you could just animate one claw and the other one repeats, the bottom one repeats the motion. So that's how we did that. And then the numbers are added in After Effects after the fact. Also lined up with the 3D geometry. And then there's a separate version of a 3D plane with a wave effect that acts as a distortion map for a plane that then drives the distortion of this map. This part was done in After Effects, not in Blender. And then this is just a stock, like a crappy stock, added stock splash. Then I did this by first stabilizing the viral video, then turning every single frame of that drop into its own layer in After Effects, and using some kind of blend mode that allowed them all to be on top of each other. And that way you can legitimately, once you know, you can trust the size of this tower and the size of the carousel, certain part of the carousel height, you can say, well, it traveled this much distance in one frame, and therefore at whatever 30 frames per second, this is how long it's traveling at its fastest speed. And that's what this is, you know. And this is another number I got obviously wrong before and had to correct, because this is what I was talking about, where the chain reaction affected every single thing. The only aspect that didn't change, the only dimension, was time, because I knew it was still the same amount of seconds and everything. And it affected, and this Twitter thing, like I had already was already negligent when I was asking for help on Twitter, so I made a mistake, and I thought I would make fun of that. You know, this is like a freeze frame joke. You have to read all the way through and see what was happening. I asked all these people for help, and everyone helped, but I gave them the wrong numbers, and so I had to kind of do it on my own later. But Twitter legitimately helped me, like the simple basic formula to figure out G-force, because I'm ignorant about these things and I do not know physics. And then once I corrected all the problems, the final mistakes that I was talking about, I also added this little note. It was among the corrections I added in. And then this G-force was calculated different. This is also drawn in Clip Studio, but I just traced it several times over so that there's this 5-frame loop of this kind of wiggly animation. So here is the only part in the entire video where on screen I had to dub me saying something else. And there are so many onion layers of stupid and wrong. Like, not only did I make all these number mistakes, but this kind of, these mistakes saved me from another mistake that would have been there. Well, let's look. I say, what do I say? I said it's not anything I would feel, the 7.3 Gs, but nevertheless, boys, be careful. What I used to say here is, it's still less than Tower of Terror, but nevertheless. And the reason I was saying that is because back when I thought that this number was 5 point something, I just Googled, what's the highest G-force on any kind of ride? And the first thing that pops up is Tower of Terror, 6 point something Gs. So I'm like, cool, it's going in the script. But the fact is, it's not the Tower of Terror I was thinking of, not the one at Disney World, at Hollywood Studios in Walt Disney World, Florida, or in Disneyland. It's a completely different ride. It's some crazy roller coaster in South Africa that just happens to be called Tower of Terror, and it has this insane, I don't even know if it's true, but this is what Google said, that it has this insane upwards of 6 Gs experience. So even if this number was correct, had been correct, it would have been the wrong Tower of Terror because, I mean, I guess it wouldn't be wrong in terms of what the words are, but I would have had to tell everybody in comments, like say, yeah, I meant the African one, the South African Tower of Terror, not the Tower of Terror that we all know. So I decided I need to just change it to a completely different word, and the only thing I could kind of fit into the word, the lips.
It's not anything I would feel, but nevertheless.
Replacing the word terror with feel was a little bit of a stretch, but I think the rest of it kind of works. I saw one person on YouTube say that they, oh, nicely ADR'd. So I guess it's pretty noticeable, but whatever.
Boys, be careful. Be sure to wear helmets
Okay,
when you go on the-
we're almost to the end.
That's not the Jap-
It's there's very limited time on the segments with the kids, so I had to figure out ways to really convey the information quickly. Like for example, here they're on the ride, right, and then they filmed.
Be careful. Be sure
My friend filmed the ride. That ride gets going by like rocking very slowly and then reaching the curve and then going and going. So I had to like kind of edit it down in a way that was natural. Like this is just the first swing, and then I ramped it up and like speed ramped it a little bit, and then it connected to this wide swing.
it's the gyro spin.
Too many things. This is a shot from a shot they took where they found the ride, and one of the kids was pointing to it, but I zoomed in so that I could just see the thing.
I'm not sure which one it is. Maybe it's not here. No, we got the right one.
It's the big tower. It's up and down. You can't miss it. Keep looking. Okay, so it was definitely fake.
Yeah, a lot of cuts in this that I don't like. This video isn't following the style guide of Quick D necessarily, because there's usually not like too many cuts. It's usually like transitions, and like I'll pop out in a circle. If you watch previous ones, you might notice that it's a lot of like these colorful wipes, but I was just like out of gas and I just did a bunch of cuts.
It's not just simple tweaking.
So this looks like Photoshop, but again, nothing that's the real thing looks right. So this isn't, if you really use Photoshop, like this marching ants line is actually just a single pixel wide. So instead this is a shape layer that is acting like a mask, a stroke that's acting like a mask for a layer that's just a bunch of stripes, like a big stripy layer that's positioned diagonally and is scrolling across, and it just looks like those marching ants. And all of this is just built in After Effects just to look like a Photoshop thing.
Perspective from the bottom all the way to the fake top, and even
All
the
right,
shadows
all right.
fall realistically across the tower. To do that, you'd need to replace the entire ride with a
And here we are doing the impossible, where I was dreading this part where I had to basically emulate what I think would have had to be done by just doing it. You got to replace the real ride with a 3D ride, so
the entire
I had to go in and clone stamp, like make this thing go away. And there's like it couldn't just be these easy geometric buildings. There had to be a frigging castle there, like this magical castle that like everything you see here is just clone stamped, just like a lot of just drawing of a fake castle, and then a 3D version of the ride. The only piece of a little bit of luck that I had in this process is that I didn't have to build this ride strictly from scratch. For some reason, someone made a commercially available 3D model of a ride, because this is a type of ride. It's been made, it exists in multiple parks around the world, but it's custom made each time, so it's a little bit different. So they made a generic version of it, and it differed a lot from what it looks like in this video. So I bought this model for like $40, and let's take a look. I don't want to underplay it. Although I didn't build it from scratch, I did have to. Anytime you buy a model that's not made natively in the app, the 3D application that you're using, it's going to be like an adaptation process. Like you have to fix a lot of things. Some things don't import correctly and stuff. So this is my version of it basically after I fixed it up, because for example, like these railings weren't, there's a lot of like geometry problems that I had to like fix up because they just didn't import correctly. It didn't have this antenna. The railing was like a different size. It didn't, the carousel thing had very different shape. It didn't have these visors, it didn't have these sticks, it didn't have those holes. The top part, I mean, I didn't really model it to look, the ride is very complicated. It has this mechanism that pulls these pulleys and the things that drop it. I just kind of fudged it because even I have limits. But I did make this piece go up and down, and it's kind of weird because there's these pulley mechanisms or whatever, but they're not aligned. So like I couldn't just have the model scroll through them, they have to move, but you can't just move them, these long rods up and down, because they would just pop out of the top of the ride. So I had to do another one of these morphs of these shape key things, so that as I moved the ride, the carousel up and down, I also morphed, how do I do that? I morphed that thing to go up and down with it so that it animates correctly. And I really did do what I'm saying at that point in the video, which is light it in all these different ways. I mean, kind of match the lighting and then actually project the image of the real frame of that, of the viral video onto the ride. So it's one of those things where it only looks real from that one angle and everywhere else it's just smeared on. So that's the first shot of the 3D. I kind of blend it seamlessly into the actual footage. And then there's this version, which is just the same ride, but treated like some kind of pseudo unfinished thing. It's actually like, it's a finished look that looks unfinished with all these like grid spaces and stuff. I mean, wireframe divisions. So often when I have to do like an orbiting shot like what this shot is, this type of thing, I just realized the easiest, people have different ways that they rig up the camera to do that. I realized I don't like complexity. I just parent the camera to and point it at a null object, which I can rotate to orbit the camera. And if you scale the object, just like with that drone thing, the camera gets scaled, but the camera's nothing about the camera gets distorted when you're looking through it. The lens, I keep thinking F12 is, in After Effects F12 is looking through the camera, and in Blender F12 is to render. So when I'm talking to an audience, I don't quite remember which is which. But yes, let's look through the camera lens. Yeah, by scaling the null, you can just push in and out, and by rotating the null, you can orbit around. So it's a very concise way to do these beauty shots. Alrighty, we're in the final stretch. Yeah, and there's a little bit of After Effects. This thing scrolling in the back is a map, like the amusement park map of that area. And I put these little question marks, you know, who would have this model?
And want to invest time and money into producing a viral piece of content featuring it.
So we're going from a tweet that someone stole this video out of to their official video.
Quality upload of the video on Lanta World's official YouTube channel, which predates any of the other widely shared.
And I just remember, like, during this shot and during most of the things that are coming after, just being on my last leg in terms of, like, coming up with how to visualize things. Do you guys remember this? Has anybody seen some of these? This is a cool short film as a whole. I don't know if you've ever seen it fully. It's really cool, but people to this day are stealing this thing and just using it as a viral video. That short film by Till Nowak. So at this point, I'm like, okay, there's an introductory sentence. What am I going to show while I say the words? With this high quality version, we can truly appreciate the work that went into this. So I thought, let me do an array of 6 moments from the video, not realizing this video is like 20 seconds long, and there's only so many things that happen. It was kind of hard to find like distinct moments that would fill a grid of 6 spaces.
But there are also a few imperfections.
And this was a cool, genuinely like a cool thing I noticed. After when you stare at something frame by frame for a month, you start noticing all this stuff. Like there is really something going on besides the ride, and it's true. I think they did replace. I think what they did, because if you watch the video as a whole, like the camera pans around a little bit, and you kind of notice that, yeah, you get to notice the pretty boat. That was lucky, and the ride next to it, this gyro swing, is swinging away, and the gyro, that other ride that the kids are on at the end, the bungee drop, is going up and down. It's like very lucky. So I think what this really was a shot by the team, you know, the studio that makes the promotional videos for the park, of which they have tons on their YouTube channel. I think they just set the camera and took a long shot, like several minutes or maybe even longer, of the park on a good day, locked off, and then they just divided it up and they made sure that every cool thing is happening at the same time, so that there's this nice vista of the park for some kind of, you know, end screen for a commercial or something. I'm pretty sure that's what's going on. And it was a wider shot, and obviously the viral video is pretending to be a phone vertically filmed thing, but it was just a wider screen that they were able to fakely move the camera around.
Looks like the reflection reveals the real carousel.
This reflection was hard to... I originally just played it in real time, but then I realized I needed to go forward and back because you can't really see what's going on.
And what's that?
And there's that little thing.
I need to see the gyro drop for myself. Oh,
So here I am, the final segment. I kind of, for some reason, in this one shot, this someone that wasn't with them, some girl, was like ended up featured very prominently. So just in case, I figured I'll blur the face. I feel like in media in Asia, like they're even more hardcore about, like, you know, not people not cleared, like, to be on the screen. Like, people get blurred a lot more aggressively than, like, they make a bigger deal about ending up on camera somewhere. So I thought it would be prudent. A lot of these little inserts, like I said, I'm actually catching like a zoom in of a wider shot, and there's a lot of motion. So in many of them, they're completely stabilized, and then I add my own fake motion that is not as crazy, so that it looks readable. And here's our final flight back. I did this chronologically. That first zoom in was done back at the beginning of the editing process, and like I said, it was kind of lumpy and weird, and so when I had to do this one, I did it over. Like I was like, I'm gonna do this from scratch. So you could see it's much more smooth. Like this is the area map, and then, excuse me, it pretty smoothly like transitions to the satellite image of the entire continent, the entire country, I mean, and then we're transitioning into the reverse version of my animation of the globe, and everything else is just being played in reverse. And then finally here, same animation. I guess I'll open it up for completeness sake. Let's see, Dronus returns. Discard changes. And I think actually, yeah, in this one, I do have my background image. So this is how I work with this. If an animation has to interact, I just import the stuff I need to see. In this case, I chose to import the picture-in-picture as well because I wanted to make sure it's not covering up the important bits. And yeah, same model, same setup, just, you know, animating it. Really, it's just being animated by animating this base with position and rotation, and then that thing that's controlling the nozzles. Like I was trying to figure out what would a jet propelled drone be like. Like if it's stopping, it has to point its jets forward and push away and then catch itself on the other end, so on and so forth. And then for the camera sort of face to look at me and do a little shake. It's just that little target cube being animated the correct way. And that gets us to the end. So over the ending, there's some music. People constantly ask, like, what's the song at the end? And you guys probably know, we've talked about this before. On quick D videos, I usually make the ending loop, And I used to use, or I do use this app called, a phone app called, what is it called? Figure. It's made by the same company that makes the one I use on the desktop, the program I use for making music called Reason. But this is a little casual thing where it's just like, it lets you do these rhythmic, arrangements of like a drum line, a bass, and a lead. And it's a fun little program. I've used it for years to make these little things. And recently I had this embarrassing thing where I thought, I had like a senior moment. Like I thought an update to this app caused me to erase all the music I ever worked on. And it turned out that it was literally I just misunderstood, and I just everything was fine. But not before I ranted about this to this company on Twitter and just like embarrassed myself. And then I had to go and say, actually, sorry, I'm just been a very much a boomer, and everything is fine. But it's a long story. But the point is, it was a very real. It felt very realistic. Multiple things happened to make me think I lost all my music. So I'm just bringing this up to say, ever since then, I've had this like PTSD about using this app. So for this ending music, I actually took one of the unfinished songs on that app and used Reason on my desktop to build it into a thing. But I was, like I said, I was tired. It's the end of the video. I'm not super happy with how that piece of music came out. It's kind of needs a lot more detail, but it's fine for an ending. The point is to get to the end, to somehow crawl to the finish line. And that's where we are. Now, I'm realizing as I'm wrapping this part up that I forgot to say at the beginning that you're welcome to ask me questions. But, oh my gosh, have we been doing this for, how long have we been doing this? An hour and a half? We've been using this system because it's hard for me to scroll through the chat and stuff. If you want to ask me a legit question that you want me to talk about, go ahead and use a big fat question mark emoji. So if you've already done this and you want me to look back, just type it again. I think if you type colon, the word question, and then followed by another colon, it becomes this big blue emoji. There's somebody, Mr. or Mrs. Fur, has typed it. I've done it. Everybody else has done it. Good. So go ahead and I guess you guys are not showing me how to do the emoji. You're actually asking questions. But I'm going to scroll through and I'm going to see if anybody already knew how to do that. And I guess not. Wait. We're not officially in question time until we do this. Okay, it is now officially Q&A time. I'm just gonna scroll through, look for any blue question marks up top. Oh, I saw some. I saw a few. What is going on? I don't want to miss any. All right, somebody said, how often is it? Rob asks, how often is necessary to use a render farm for model shots? All or some of them? I only have to use it when I'm doing like this kind of circumstance where it's like the real effects, where it's something happening in the real world and I'm trying to make it look half real. So there's like interactive, like material, like realistic materials and lighting and stuff. Sometimes certain things like transparent, partially transparent surfaces, or I don't know, like things that require multiple bounces of light, they just take forever for a computer to process, and I don't really have like my computer is great, but doesn't have like a powerful graphics card. It's not really good for that particular task. So luckily there's these, you could just sign up on a website and pay per render. And I use one of these websites to just throw it at, get it done when I'm just on a tight schedule. But if I'm just doing most of these graphics that are like simple visualizations, even if I can't do it in After Effects, nowadays with Blender, there's a new render engine called Eevee, and it's not as realistic. It's more like something between game rendering and realism. It's like it's called real-time rendering, but it's not fully real-time. It's just very fast. So I use that. So I'm finding myself needing to do a render farm thing less and less. Well, so someone else right after, even though they didn't use the question mark, I'm sorry I didn't say to do it in advance. asks me, Havard asks, what is the cloud service that I use to render? It's called, because I work in Blender, there's one that's just dedicated just for Blender called Blender Grid. And that's what I use. They're pretty good. It seems like a very small company. It's like just a dude with a small staff and a big render farm. And they've been very accommodating. Sometimes I've thrown like weird stuff that took forever to render even on their render farm. Not because I'm doing anything epic, but because I don't set my projects up well. And they contact me and they're like, oh, we had to write a special code to like make your thing render, but here it is. But there are other bigger companies that whatever, like I don't know if, I can't think of any right now, but there's ones where they do all software. So you're like, you go there, it's like if you're working in Cinema 4D, if you're working in Max, whatever, they'll render it all. But my little Blender one is good enough for me at this point. What else is going on? Looking for questions. Thank you guys for the kind words about, that you like how my stuff looks. And thank you, Kelly, for saying my stuff looks beautiful. I'm glad you enjoy this. Godzilla2 asks, what would be interesting? That would be interesting. That would be interesting. A quick tutorial on how you made that map in Blender. I guess you wrote that question just as I started explaining it. Or are you talking about the drone landing thing? I'm not sure. That wasn't done in Blender. I mean, the Blender thing of the planet is just a NASA photo that you can go to somewhere on the NASA network of websites. There is like satellite images, and you could, as far as I know, you can use that for anything. It's like government, like, I don't know if it's public domain or what, but I think they have like these pre-unwrapped images of the entire world, continents, like rectilinearly unwrapped, so you could just wrap it onto a 3D object. And that's what I use. I use one of those composites that somebody already took time to scientifically create. Actually, it's multiple. I have somewhere a while back I dug up like there's a version of it, just how it looks photographically. Then there's a specularity map, or like a reflection map, and a bump map. So all of those together make the globe look realistic. And then there's a separate image of like the weather patterns and all those things, and you put it on a half transparent sphere of the model on top of your globe. So, all right. What's another question? TJ Horner says, unrelated, but I recently rewatched your talks, and I'm wondering if you used special software for your slides, or is it really just QuickTime Player? If so, then you obviously really work on timing. Yeah, I felt a little weird. Before I prepared for this stream, I was playing with the idea of using something so that your experience of watching this and me showing you the different bits would be seamless. I kind of have a hang up about just seeing someone's desktop and just like everything being just rinky-dink. But in the end, I couldn't figure out a way that wouldn't have required me to like delay my stream by a week. So yeah, I don't do that for my live talks, or I haven't up to this point. I use this software called QLab by a company called Figure 53, I think is the name of this company. And it's just a little, it only works on an Apple, on a Mac OS, but it's a cool piece of software. It's very simple. It's almost like a little iTunes like playlist, but it's extremely sophisticated, where you can connect anything you can manage to connect to your computer, including a DMX lighting console or just multiple video monitors. Like I could build like a crazy Broadway stage with like weird shaped things that have projections made on them, and I could control them from that software. And it's like they have a system where you pay for whatever features you want to use on it, and you can also rent it. So it's extremely affordable for what it can do. And I just went and bought like the version of it that I needed for audio and video. And I also played a little bit with lighting for my Blender talk last year, but it didn't really, it didn't really like pay out too much because my little baby lights didn't really make an impact in that stage. But yeah, it's called QLab, but like spelled like with a spelled C-U-E lab, I think, or maybe it's Q. Wait, it's on my computer here. What is it called? Yeah, Q with a Q, the letter Q lab. All right. Oh, and somebody answered it for me. Yes, Rob correctly interjected that it's QLab. Questions. I'm just randomly seeing a thing. Danny Pesses says, next time you need to cut a wig, go to a barbershop and have them cut the wig while you wear it. Well, I mean, I think if I had a legit wig... One time I did some video for something and somehow we were at a place that's like some legendary place around here that does like high-end wigs or something, some lady. And like when it's something like that, like toupees, like stuff that's supposed to be able to look like no one can tell you have fake hair. Yeah, I guess you do that at a barber, but trust me, this was like Party City, goofy, like plastic hair that didn't even, like we couldn't cut it properly because it didn't have like the short under hair or anything. It's, you know, I pretend I'm not trying hard, you know, and that's my excuse for certain things not being high quality. Sammy asks, are moderators allowed to ask questions? Okay, I will allow it this time. You've recently have been doing a bunch of try this at home experiments. Laminar flow, the helicopter, ceiling fan, this model. Where do you see yourself in the educational YouTube space now? I still don't see myself as an educational YouTuber, to be honest, because I don't think like that's what's in my DNA. Like, I don't feel a strong calling for that, and I'm constantly, the more years pass as I make these videos and they're sort of educational, being considered educational, the more I mess up and I'll say something wrong. I mean, imagine how terrible it would be if I didn't catch my mistake in this one. Like, I would have been having the worst time right now with everybody just, it wouldn't take like mathematicians or physicists to tell me I'm flat out wrong with my estimations. I mean, I could still be wrong, but at least now I got it like to a reasonable place. But had I not caught my dumb mistakes, it would have been lame. So I don't feel like I should be relied upon as any sort of like, when you say the word education, you know what, look at my stuff, but then go to school because my stuff made you interested in this topic or that topic. But don't use me as I'm not your teacher, you know, like I might be wrong about like half the stuff I say. I didn't used to feel that way, but as I get older or as I get more experience being a creator in this space, I kind of feel that way more and more. I feel like at a certain point, academics and educators and everyone else, there's like a filter that separates us, and I feel like I need to be cognizant of the fact that I am the latter. I don't want to like, I'll hang out with educators, but I won't call myself one of them because I don't think I have any right to. All right, more questions. This scrolling mechanism on YouTube is not the best. Fur asks, is Mr. Flair making a comeback? We miss him. I miss him too. Don't worry, he'll come back. I mean, I don't have a lot of characters to interact with, do I? So I'm gonna need Mr. Flair at some point. And yes, I have plans for him, but I guess nothing immediate. But he'll be back. He needs to be more active on Twitter, if you ask me. TJ asks, unrelated. Oh wait, yeah. Somehow we did this already. I don't know how I jumped around. Yes, sorry. I went to the wrong place. Somebody asks, have I found a replacement for Mr. Flair? Like I said, yeah, I have thoughts about like what happens next with Mr. Flair, but we're not there yet. Jay Lynn asks, in your Dronus model, you have your camera track a cube object. Is there a reason you use a cube instead of a null, like you use for, say, your thruster targets? No reason other than aesthetically when you're working with it. When you add a null object in Blender, like in its properties, there's just an option to choose like what you want it to look like as a thing. So if you're doing like a character animation, which is beyond what I usually do, you're gonna, if you have like 55 controllers, you don't want them to just be a bunch of these spiky points, because you're gonna end up like not knowing what you're even touching. So you can make them different shapes, and people go so far as to build like a separate little simple object and then tell the null to use that object as its appearance, because then, like I said, if you have a character, you have like eyebrows and eyeballs and this and that, and you can create these little shapes that kind of roughly represent that are floating next to the character, and you can move them around. It's just a thing to not get confused. Soviet asks, any plans to get a VFX assistant to help you get these done a bit more easily? Yes, that is my current project. I've been taking steps to do that, but it literally that project got interrupted by yet this, the necessity of completing this current video that I just recalled. But I think I'm gonna get right on it and resume where I left off. Ronnie wants to know, are you interested in resin 3D printing for props? It's ridiculously higher quality than the older style. There are some really inexpensive printers for smaller objects. I've always given a little look at keeping one eye on the 3D printer stuff. I've never played with it, and yeah, I made jokes before in my videos how like, oh, it looks like it's not that cool, but I know that it's one of those fields that's progressing. I get in my mind, I think I'm waiting until I can just have like a replicator. Like, give me a printer that I will press it, and it's not going to take 17 hours, and it's not going to need to be like painstakingly like polished away from its supports and all this stuff. And I think that exists now in various forms. Yeah, I like it. I mean, my props are terrible, and I'd like to do either, like, again, just like with the effects, I'd like to get with people that maybe do that a little bit better, and or commission some stuff from some of the makers out online. I know the Punished Props guy, Bill Doran, we kind of said things to each other on Twitter, and I think he'd be happy to make some stuff for me. Maybe I should take him up. Maybe I need a new communicator. Or is my communicator too iconic to change into something cooler? I don't know. Gammerman 3000 wants to know, will you get any new merch in soon? Also, do you pack the merch yourself, or does another party do it? I will, but I know I'm also aware that I said that approximately like a year and a half ago or something. I do it myself. I really don't have a merch operation. Like, if you've gotten a thing from me, as my moderator can attest, if I'm late or something, with sending it out, I will sometimes write a personalized note or draw a little sketch. So it's me doing it, and if you've gotten merch from me and it took a weirdly long time, sometimes that happens. I apologize. It's like, gotta wait till I'm done with something pressing till I do it. But I try to just stay on top of it every week and send things out as orders come in. But yes, I am with you. I hear you. I need new merch, and I have I know what cool merch I could make. I just have to make it, or again, outsource this task to someone who would like to do it, who is good at it. Real Electronic Me asks, is YouTube your main job, or do you have another normal day job? I haven't had a normal day job since I've been doing the Patreon thing, so YouTube is my job, and YouTube is like a certain income. But I never made a living on YouTube because, I don't know, I've never been in that tier of creators that are so huge that they make like a paycheck that you could just live off of on YouTube. Excuse me. But Patreon, you guys are enable me to make a living, quite frankly, doing what I really, really enjoy. And it's like, it's scary because years pass, and it's harder and harder to imagine myself to imagine myself going back to, or just turning to doing some of the work I used to do before, like freelance, just anything, like doing editing and stuff for other people. And it's like, I guess that's scary sometimes to me personally, because like, what if I had to do that? I think that would be tough. It's I don't want to say I'm spoiled being able to do what I love doing and kind of do it on my own terms, like as far as like, you know, you let me create my ideas and you let me give them to you, and you may like them or you may not. Like, it's a conversation, but you seem to like everything I do. It's like very intoxicating, and being able to be supported for doing just that is amazing. So I try to keep that in like in focus at all times. Like, it's like a thing hanging in front of me. It's like those motion control things when you're watching Marvel movies behind the scenes and they're wearing the headset and they're capturing the face performance with a camera that's in front of the face. And I'm sure it's very annoying to act when the thing is like just pointed wherever you look. But that's how I try to think of Patreon. It's there no matter what's happening. I am indebted to my patrons on a continuous basis, and I don't want to take that for granted. So all of that to say that you are my main job, the Patreon and this whole campaign, and my channel. My channel is just the platform on which I bring you the content. So yeah. All right. Yes. Your CD pin is CD certified. I wish I could like do a autograph on a pin or something, but these metal pins are kind of small and shiny, and it wouldn't work. Maybe I should have them engraved on the back with like my signature, or have like one of those, like, this is one of 57 stamped on it. Excuse me. Finally used that cough button. Funny how the stream starts and I no longer need to cough. Robotic Keyboard asks, I really like the stream, but I'm completely broke. Will you do more riddles on Discord for insane people like me to find the stream? Yes, I'm sorry, did I mention that at the top? I always, in the previous streams, I was like saying, like, hopefully if you're watching this, you're on Patreon. If not, tisk. But I mean, I'm still trying to feel out how much people want this. So I thought, like, I don't know, maybe we should open it up, but I didn't want to be unfair to people who are patrons. So what I did is on Discord. Discord is another community where it's like, I feel like I owe them a little bit of something because I don't spend enough time on Discord. So yesterday I thought, what if I give them a task that would allow them to watch this stream even though they're not patrons? So I put a silly riddle that was like too hard and too weird to be able to decode the URL of this stream, and I could see that it was too vague and too complicated to get, so I had to give follow-up clues, and at least one person, amazingly, I guess Robotic Keyboard, is anyone else here from Discord and aren't on Patreon? At least one person made it through, and that's kind of amazing. I don't think I would have solved my riddle. I need to work on my riddle making skills. Yeah. So I in the future, should I do that? I don't know. I don't want to be like unfair, but also I feel a little weird doing the streams just for Patreon, to be honest, because like, I don't know, I'll just have to think. I like doing the streams themselves as to how it should be done and who should be able to see it. We'll keep exploring that. I don't know. I'm too scared to do it, and I don't think the 1.6 million people on Patreon on YouTube want to watch this. You guys, the smaller group on Patreon, I feel comfortable with. All right, sorry, I don't want to miss anything. I'm kind of scrolling awkwardly through this. So Godzilla has another question. Will you make a tutorial for the mapping of a 2D image onto a 3D environment like you did with Drona's arrival? The mapping, you say, I'm talking about the mapping of the video from the Korean kids. Well, that part isn't mapped onto anything 3D. That's, like I was showing, it's just a picture-in-picture, and then there's like a fancy frame covering the edges of the more boringly rectangular picture that's a little bit differently shaped. So I'm not sure what you mean. There isn't any 3D mapping involved in that, but like I was showing, there's 3D mapping, like when sometimes I'll take a photo. Oh, you mean, okay, I'm sorry. You're talking about the arrival thing, that little moment where I mapped. Yeah. I guess so. I feel like that's one of those things it's like a prerequisite. I mean, you could probably find that, but sure, that seems like a not too difficult tutorial for me to do, so I will do that. But there are some prominent Blender gurus that are so great at Blender that they have covered this topic at length, although with an older version of Blender at that point. So if you immediately want to learn to do that, you could Google it right now. But yeah, I'll consider doing that as a tutorial. Thanks for the suggestion. I need to do tutorials more often, like I need to do everything else. Gammerman has another question. Dang it, I mean the physical Mr. Sorry, I guess I'm missing the beginning of your question. Scrolling up. I don't know what your question is connecting to. Dang it, I mean the physical Mr. Flare that you yeeted. Oh, yes. Okay, so you asked about Mr. Flare earlier. I mean, the beat up Mr. Flare is here. It's a little too far for me to reach to get the lamp, and it's too gruesome for you to look at this beat up shards of a remaining lamp. But I don't think... some people offered me, they showed me that they have a lamp that is basically something like just like that lamp. I cannot find like the exact lamp, but I mean, why force? I don't like. I know I've been wearing the same jacket for 12 years, but I do like to move forward with things, and I think maybe it's time for Mr. Flare to take on a new, more interesting form. So, as much as I regret that I built the entire lamp as a detailed model in 3D, I also don't want to try to replace it. It's like, who cares? I used that lamp because that's the lamp I had that looked interesting, and now I can find something else interesting, so we'll see. But you know, life goes on. Oh gosh, the scrolling is just like jumping out of from under my hand. Killerav asks, are you planning a full CD video again? Been all quick format for 9 months. Has it been 9 months? Yes, there was a topic that I was gonna do before this, back when things weren't as crazy, that I thought lended itself well to the traditional kind of video that you see me in the corner. But then it didn't work. But okay, you know how I was ranting about the thing I essentially missed a month because of? I can't say what it is, but you can see it in a matter of weeks. But I could just probably say that it does feature the usual setup. Okay? So, if you really want to see that imagery of your old friend Captain D sitting in his little corner with a lamp with players, then you will see that very soon. And I don't know at this moment as I'm speaking to you what the heck is going to happen this month, and what I mean, I'm making something, but I don't know what and how it's going to work, and the less time I have, the more the likelihood grows of it being a quick D. Because frankly, the green screen right now is already set up and the camera remained there. I didn't even have time to clean up the set fully, so I can't say that it won't be a quick D, but I can't say that it will be this next one. But I do miss doing the original format. I'd like to sit in the corner again and be a little bit less frantic about what I'm talking about and hold a YouTube player again. So I'll try to do that as soon as possible. I think we're approaching the end of our question time. I'm seeing only a couple more questions. Real Electric Me asks, I'm sure you explained it at one point already, but how did you come up again? How'd you come up again with the figure Captain Disillusion again? With the figure Captain Disillusion again? With the character? Or the look of him? That is something I covered. I'd feel bad if anybody that follows lots of my different Q&As and things has to listen to me blabber on about myself and my ideas that way. Like there's a website. In addition to this stream stuff, I do a Q&A that's audio only, but it's also a live stream. But it's just like a radio show, and it's done with the guys that run the Discord server. But we stream it on Twitch. So if that's not confusing, probably in the coming days, you'll be able to listen to a Q&A like that, and I'll tweet that stream. I'm mentioning it because those people made, one guy, his name is Ben, and his screen name is Volcanic Arts, and he made a website called, I think it's, what is it, Discord, cddiscord.info. I don't know if it's currently I think it's working, and you'll see there a menu item at the top called Q&A archive, and there's tons of these unlisted YouTube videos that you can play from that page, where it's just hours of me blabbering on about, I don't know, my background and the stuff of how I do things on Captain Disillusion, like where the idea came from. So I feel like I've explained it better before, and I wouldn't be able to do it now that I'm kind of exhausted. But thank you for asking. I would refer you to some of those previous coverings of that. Asks, what kind of home setup are you running for the computer? Basic iMac or some fancy multi-GPU Mac Pro beast? I am running, I covered this a little bit in the past, but yeah, it is a Mac Pro. They're about to come out with the new Mac Pro that's the grill, the weird like cheese grater. I have the Mac Pro that is currently still the one that they do sell, which looks like a sleek plastic trash can. It is right under my desk here, and it's whatever. I invested in it at the time, and I paid like a lot of, like a stupid, not like an insane amount of money, but it was like kitted out. You know how you set up your options when you customize a computer to kind of like some of the highest settings, so it was like a kind of a ridiculous price, but I knew that I would be using it for the next, like, hopefully 5 to 10 years, and that's about how long it's, well, we're in like year 5 or 6, and so yeah, I have a Mac Pro. I didn't put any extra hardware. I do use I use this little box. Wait, like, can I show it to you? It used to be you need a big like interface for video and stuff. I've been using this Blackmagic Ultra Studio mini monitor to connect an external monitor when you're trying to color correct stuff or whatever. But I don't even use that much. So I just get my stuff into the computer, do everything on the computer, and then upload it. So there's not a lot of gear, but I do have some things like I got a little bit of toys for live streaming and whatever. But mostly it's just a Mac Pro. It's a very good computer and it's expensive, but it's paid for itself, and it was like one of my big investments besides like cameras and stuff, to make my stuff decent quality. Gummerman 3000. Any new guests planned? Not at the moment. I always have thoughts about who I want to do stuff with, but nothing lined up, nothing filmed by anyone, not even any talks with anyone. But I feel like after this thing with these kids, like I need to just chill and just focus on me, and do something I can control, and I'm not stressing out too much about whether the other party will be able to do all the stuff and it will work out. And that looks like it's bringing us, that's brought us to the end of the thing. Well, somebody, Johnny the Carrot. Oh, mind if I, sorry, Johnny Johnny the Carrot here is one of the people that is involved with the Discord, and we also chat. He joins us often for those audio Q&As. I didn't mean to exclude him. It's Volcanic and Johnny. And he asks if he could tweet the Q&A Twitch. Yes, of course. I'm sorry, I don't have it on hand. So please tweet. not tweet, but post the link as much as you want. You guys, I can only be grateful and happy. Anyone, like whether it's Samantha helping me out, doing this process and watching the helping you guys out in the chat, whoever I don't get to, and whether it's Johnny, whether it's Volcanic, or anyone else, or the people, the other mods on the Reddit, the subreddit that we have for Captain Disillusion. Like, I don't really, you know, this is my life. This is the life of the generation that is watching my videos. They're diverging. This guy called Captain D is becoming a bit of a boomer while you are entering the prime of your life. And so I'm getting to that Jeff Goldblum being interviewed about Spider-Man phase where I'm like, I don't know what's I have no idea. The Q&A, yes, I'm sorry. You guys take so much initiative and help me out with running these things and helping, you know, me do Q&As, helping me interface with the audience in ways other than my videos, and I'm really, really grateful for that. So I appreciate it, as I appreciate everyone else that you know, signed in today and chose to watch my stream. I hope you had a good time. I feel a little bit exhausted having to relive a whirlwind version of my production this month, but I hope it gives you kind of an idea. It's not very different from a typical video. I don't always have like disasters where I have to do a bunch of corrections. I don't always work with guests, but it's always something like a big complicated like onion. Like, I thought I was doing something simple, but there's another layer to it, another layer, another layer, another layer, and then by the end it's like, what am I doing? I'm just a guy, and I made the props, I made the graphics, I did an impression, I bought a wig, I shot it, I wrote the script, I had to do the exporting and all the things. So I really appreciate you guys consuming my content, supporting me. It's amazing. I'm dragging out this goodbye for maybe a little bit too long. So let's wrap it up. I don't know, I don't have any final words of wisdom. I am gonna now put all my attention to the next video. We are kinda pushing into the month already, and to be honest, I'm going to the Blender conference. I think I mentioned that last stream. I'm not speaking at the Blender conference this year, which is gonna be the 23rd to the 25th or something at the end of this month. But I am going to Amsterdam because I had such a good time, and I want to network with some other Blender artists there who maybe could help me work on future videos and do cooler stuff. You know, expand the Captain Disillusion cinematic universe and stuff. So yeah, I'm on a quest of involving more people in the production, and you guys are helping me do that because obviously I'd have to pay other people to do stuff, and that's why I'm doing it, because you're making it possible. So with that, once again, thank you so much. I'll let you know if we do another one of these streams. I hope you liked it. Let me know what you think. Always give me feedback on Patreon, and please be patient with me. And thank you once again so very, very much. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.